What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast, episode 11. I'm your host, Nicholas Merrington, and if you're wondering who that man in the suit is in the other frame, you might not know him because he did miss his very first episode of the show, and now he's trying to earn his way back, and he's definitely dressed to impress. James Creel, how are you doing, James?
Pretty good. Just windy as all hell here.
Is it?
And work. Yeah, and work wasn't too bad, but otherwise, standard days.
And is this your standard Wednesday attire?
After last week when I wasn't invited, I realized that, every day could be your last, so you should dress to impress, and thus I came to outclass you in terms of outfit.
Okay. So it can't be a competition because you did not tell me about it. If you want to make it,
you were the one who said episode 10 you wanted to wear a suit. You didn't, so I just used the next episode I was invited to, and now I'm in a suit.
Okay, to be fair, my suit is in Stellenbosch. I'm stuck in PE, COVID happened, broke us apart. I haven't been able to get back to him yet, or her, whatever the suit is.
Well,
so
you can drive.
I could, but I'm not going to go just to fetch a suit.
Borders are open.
For now, I mean, rumors. The very legit voice note.
Today's video.
No.
A friend sent that to me. That was good though.
That was brilliant. But anyway, enough small talk. This is the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast, the show that revolves around all things video games. If you want to be a part of the show, remember you can write in and be a part of it with a question, with an answer, or with a topic for us to discuss. And you can write into the email address talknerdywithme21@gmail.com and go give us a follow on Instagram at Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. We got an awesome show for you this week, and James and I will be breaking down our top 10 PlayStation 4 games. But before we get there, we got an icebreaker question. But before we get there, James, this has been a bit of a hectic week with regards to video game news, all the embargoes on games and the new consoles, and today I was just overwhelmed with the amount of content that came out on the internet regarding people unboxing their consoles, whether that be the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox One. So I just wanted to touch on a few things. First of all, my review copy of the PlayStation 5 hasn't arrived yet. I just wanted to check if yours has, because I'm worried that there's some kind of delay with the delivery.
Mine hasn't come either, but thankfully I did secure us a PS5 for South Africa's launch day. So there's that.
That's brilliant. And then we'll just have to alternate it week by week to make it work.
Oh yeah, because of course, I'm gonna courier it between PE and Cape Town every week.
Yes, that sounds good. Or you go 2 weeks. I mean, that makes more sense. Anyway.
Oh yeah, of course. That's what makes sense here.
Another little piece of news: Cyberpunk 2077 was delayed again, even though the game has gone gold. And James, I just want to get your quick reaction to the game being delayed by, I think it's 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very upset, but at the same time, it means that I don't have to decide between Miles Morales and Cyberpunk to which to play first when they come out. Also gives me time to play those PS Plus collection games that we're getting, so that come with PS5. So I've got quite a few things that I can play instead of that, which means I don't have to decide. It's kind of been decided for me.
Very true.
Sad, but I mean, they're doing it for quality assurance purposes, apparently. Yeah. So I don't mind. I don't mind waiting for this game. I just hope it's not going to get pushed to next year. If that happens, I will be pissed.
I can't say that I don't see that happening, but I mean, it's CD Projekt Red. I think they're one of the few developers who really deserved the title of saying work on their own time. I don't think they're pressured by the consumer. I don't think they're pressured by the rest of the industry. I think when they know that their game is ready, they'll put it out. If there is another delay to next year, I think CD Projekt Red is one of the few studios who I would see that happening and people still being kind of okay with it. But I mean, geez, since the game's gone gold.
But business-wise, I think CD Projekt Red wants it before Christmas.
I'm sure.
Just for sales-wise, they want this game out for Christmas. So that's all I can say for it.
At least you're not going to be, you're not going to have. Let me start again. You're going to have a lot of options of what you would like to play on launch day and the first few weeks of the PlayStation 5. And on top of that, today they announced another thing for you to play. First of all, PS Plus games for November were announced. Really cool. We get in Middle Earth Shadow of War and Hollow Knight, two amazing games. with Shadow of War. James, you and I were just saying we both considered buying this game in the last month or two. I was about 2 months ago. I think you said you were considering it
Yeah,
this month.
I was considering it today.
Considering, I mean, how perfect is that?
Yeah,
Um,
perfect
and
timing.
and then they tell us that Bug Snacks, the highly anticipated game Bug Snacks, is going to be free for the month of November on PlayStation 5 if you have PS Plus. So luckily, one of us will be on the
Actually, no,
Yes.
free until January.
Okay. So if I don't get a
I watched.
PS5 before Jan, it'll be trouble.
Yeah, I saw PlayStation Access's video. They said free until January, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, luckily you'll be on the ecosystem to secure it for us, and I'll hold back on the
Doing
PS4 and
my
just hold
part.
down the fort. So I think we'll get a little team effort going here, and then we'll just collect them all.
Doing my part here.
Nice.
Being the gracious one.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump into the icebreaker. As I said last week, my flatmate back in Stellenbosch wrote in with a bit of a wordy question kind of statement. I don't know what you call it. I'll read it out. And then, James, if you want to give me your opinion on what he says.
I think the word is rant.
Yeah, it's
or
definitely,
rant, depending.
definitely a rant. I would go with that. I'd like to give a disclaimer before I even read this. He is a PC player. He does not own a console. He has no right to talk about the PlayStation 4 and any of the games that are on it that cannot be experienced anywhere else, but I will read it. So here we go. Good day, Talk Nerdy with me host. I hope this YouTube channel is going well. I'm super disgusted about you making The Last of Us Part 2 your game of the year. It's probably the worst story ever made on top of average to low-end graphics / gameplay. The music was average, but hey, at least it had some decent rope mechanics. But that is about it. Just touch there. Brilliant rope mechanics. Brilliant. To add to that, the producers of the game gave it such a good rating that as soon as it got released and the public could vote for it, it got below 30% rating. This was taken down because it was terrible publicity. To prove this to you, go and Google the reviews, look at the ratings, and the fact that the mainline streamers didn't want to rate it because of the badness of it. See the attached file for other people's reviews. So basically he attached a picture of, if you Google The Last of Us Part 2, the little like thing on the side that gives a like Google summary of it, and then a little box of what people who use Google think of the game, and then it shows how many people gave it 5 stars, 4 and down to 1. And the game is currently sitting on a 2.9 stars, with about, like, if I had to explain it, most of the votes come from the 5 and the 1 stars. About an equal amount, just more 1 stars, and then a couple 4, 3, 2, and that kind of evens it out. But we'll touch on that now. So that's the point he's trying to make. Then he says on some other news, when are we going to start talking about the online games like CSGO, Dota 2, Overwatch, etc., etc.? Also, what do you think about Apex getting released as crossplay? Would you consider playing it so that you don't have to use a remote again on my PC? Regards, the flatmate. So, James, a lot to unpack here. I think first of all, I just want to know your initial reaction to this email.
Slander, blasphemy. To quote Robert Pattinson from what is it? The Devil All the Time. Delusions. This man has never played the game. I'm going to just say, I'll agree with gameplay being average because, I mean, what game more or less isn't almost a third-person action-adventure stealth action game at this point? You've played the gameplay that Last of Us will have 1,000 times. No doubt about that. It is more refined, but it's not different. But story was decent. Music was good. Rope mechanics were beautiful. It was the sexiest rope you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And mainline streamers wouldn't want to comment on it because they know that the game was so divisive that if they do, half their fan base is going to fight with the other half, and they're just going to have a toxic mess.
Mm-hmm.
So staying quiet for streamers was probably the better option. And that's probably why they did that. And then, yeah, on the things of CSGO, Dota 2, Overwatch, when will we talk about online games? In my opinion, when they aren't boring after 2 matches.
You can definitely tell we're the story guys.
You can definitely tell he's going to be angry at my answer.
For me to go back to The Last of Us, first of all, Henku, that's your opinion. And while I don't agree with your opinion, I respect your opinion. But to me, The Last of Us had really solid gameplay, and it was the most fun. One of the games I've had the most fun with this year, gameplay-wise, alongside Ghost of Tsushima. Fun. Graphics were beautiful.
It's very depressing, so it's a fun
True.
game.
Graphics were beautiful. For a game running on a PS4, if you were to equate that to its PC version of with the same specs, like what they were able to, how they were able to run that game with those graphics and the load times you had after dying, respawning was insanely quick. Stuff like that, I thought it ran really well. Rope mechanics, totally agree with you. Beautiful. I think we've said that too much. The divisiveness of the game, I think that's the whole point of the game. You made a sequel to one of the most loved games of all time. It's going to be divisive. And a lot of things I remember seeing when the game came out, people going to Neil Druckmann, saying, Neil Druckmann being the director of The Last of Us Part 2, saying, Neil, how could you do this with this character? They would never do that. And you're saying this to the guy who created the character. If anyone's going to know this character, it's him, and people are disagreeing because they think they know better. With that said, I think that the game is meant to be divisive. I think what the story is trying to achieve is meant to be like that. And this review actually summarizes that perfectly because they're all fives or they're all ones. You either love it or you hate it. It's very hard to be in the middle. As for streamers, I don't know much about stream. Yeah, James?
I'm a 4.
You're
I'm in the middle.
Okay, I'm a 5.
Yeah.
As for streamers, I don't know much about their point of views of the game. And then as for the online games, I do enjoy some online games. I haven't been on them a lot, but like back in the day, me on Black Ops 3, like I was proper, playing that almost every day. As for CSGO, Dota, and Overwatch, I don't have a gaming PC. So Henku, if you buy me a gaming PC, I'll more than happily join you. For Apex, with the crossplay,
Doesn't Overwatch have crossplay?
Pardon?
Doesn't Overwatch have crossplay?
I don't know. It might. Maybe Overwatch 2 will have. But anyway, for
I'll
Apex,
check.
I will stay on the PlayStation for Henku. I don't want to touch that mouse and keyboard. I'll be wrecking you all the way from my nice comfy DualShock 4. So you can stay on your mouse and keyboard and I'll drop in with you. Just hit me up. And I'm still waiting to play Among Us with you, by the way. But anyway, sorry guys, we went on a complete tangent there, kind of, or icebreaker. We're going to get straight into the main topic, but Henku, thank you for writing in with a lovely question. I really enjoyed it. Have you got something for us there, James?
Oh no, Overwatch doesn't have, but this was more for me to get my list.
Okay, cool. So thank you again, Henku. I hope that you join the consoles soon. Maybe pick yourself up a PS5 and leave that PC Master Race behind because it's not real, Maybe we're biased. We are biased, but
the PC Master Race was made by Ben Yahtzee Croshaw. I can cite the exact video he made it up in.
Nice. Anyway, we're going to move over to our main topic of the show. And this week, we're going to be talking about our top 10 PlayStation 4 games. James and I are going to be going one for one. I'm going to be kind of keeping a timer. It's going to be hard because the list is on my phone and I'd keep a time on my phone. So I didn't think that one through. I know, I'm just so lazy. Anyway, how do you do your time on the Apple Watch? I've never actually done this. I always use my phone. But we're going to go start
from number 10. It's literally timer.
Yeah.
It's literally an app called Timer.
Oh, there's a clock. Okay. What's this? It's loading. Okay, anyway, we're each going to give our top 10 games. We're going to start from number 10, go down to number 1, go one at a time. But before we start, James, do you want to give your honorable mentions?
Yes, I have 6 honorable mentions. I'll give no reasons, but I'm just going to list them. Red Dead Redemption 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Last of Us Part 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Dishonored 2, and Life is Strange.
Did you play Life is Strange?
Yeah, it was a free PS Plus game. I actually really enjoyed it. It's the only choose your own adventure style, Telltale style game I actually have enjoyed and finished. Nice. Never could finish The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones.
I'm actually a bit curious now because there are a couple of games there I didn't expect to not make your list. I thought Horizon would have, but very interesting. My honorable mentions. Now that you say it, I probably would give a honorable mention to Red Dead 2, but my honorable mentions go to Watch Dogs. The reason I didn't pick that was because I did play it on Xbox 360 first, and Ratchet and Clank didn't crack the top 10, but a game I really enjoyed. But I think without further ado, let's get straight into it. James, 1 minute on the clock. Number 10, what is it?
Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. This kind of goes against your thing, but I played it first on Xbox, then on PS4 I replayed it. But it was the first game I got truly hyped for. So the fact that it it was also cross-gen, so it also did release on PS4 as a launch title. So that's why I counted it. And it was just, yeah, it was a great time. Like it kind of just brought like love and life back to Assassin's Creed. So I just really loved the game. Also, the entire pirate fantasy was just so perfect in that game. Like you can't get a better pirate game right now than that. So yeah, it was just like, it was a whole lot of fun. And most of the games I have picked are not really games necessarily that have to be the best games ever, but they're the games that I've had the most fun with. So that's why I couldn't like look back on all the things I've played this generation and not put AC4 there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Oh, you had 3 seconds
Okay.
left. You're cutting it close.
Oh,
My number
so
10.
sorry, Nick.
My number 10 is a game that defined the beginning of the PS4 for me because it was the first game you owned and I got to see on next gen, and that's Infamous Second Son. And this goes back to exactly what you said. The game I had the most fun with. It's not a game I talk about a lot. It's not a game I think about every day. But when I think of the PS4, that was the first game I saw in action on PS4 when I came over to your house. And when I got a PS4, The Last of Us Remastered was my first game I played. And then I remember borrowing Infamous from you. And just that was my first truly, a game that was built for the PS4. And I really enjoyed it. I had way too much fun with the different powers. It was the best superhero game I'd played at that point in time, and I really enjoyed the story, and the choose between good and bad was still new to me. Being able to make choices in games, that wasn't really a thing for me with the type of games I used to play back on 360s. So I really enjoyed that.
Number 9 for me is Dying Light. So Dying Light, after I had played AC and gotten obsessed with parkour in games, not in real life, never going to be able to do that.
What?
I really enjoyed it because it was a first-person perspective game with parkour and zombies, and it just had a very fun mechanic with how you fight the zombies and you just craft weapons. It was obviously a success, spiritual success to the Dead Island games, but then with that extended traversal, the nighttime switch to the more violent zombies, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun to play. And then when you got that grappling hook and suddenly you became like Spider-Man, where it was just a grappling hook, but if you throw it, it yanks you to walls. Like the physics just suddenly didn't matter at all at the end of that. And it was just great. Like it was just, yeah, there's no way to describe it other than that it was just a fun game to play. Like you never had to think much. It was just mindless zombie bashing action.
Nice. Oh, perfect minute. Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
The grappling hook. I mean, it's in the same game that you can run over the heads of zombies. So,
Well, not multiple. You can do one jump, I think, and springboard off. I don't think you can run on multiple zombie heads.
Okay.
Unless I'm forgetting.
My number 9 is a game that only made you honorable mentions, and that's Horizon Zero Dawn. Guerrilla Games, obviously. Never played a Killzone in my life. Never played a Guerrilla Games game in my life. And I remember from the very first E3 demo how blown away I'm sure we both were, thinking like, what is this game? First of all, it's these giant robot dinosaurs, but I'm like a person from like the tribal era, what's going on. It looks like post-apocalyptic, but they use bow and arrow. This doesn't make no sense. And anyway, after playing the game, it makes perfect sense. I'm very excited about the sequel. The game was amazing. I remember coming home from Stellenbosch, and because I didn't have my PlayStation there at the time, and only having a certain, I can't remember, I think it was like a 1 month or 2 month holiday to play it. And
that's more than enough time.
It's more than enough time, but you got other stuff to do in the holidays. So I did crunch through it a bit, and I really enjoyed my time. The gameplay is phenomenal, and the story was a bit over my head, but I did really enjoy it.
Number 8 for me, Ghost of Tsushima. For many of the reasons that have been listed every other time we've spoken about it. Just very unique game, very beautiful. The swordplay was amazing. The new multiplayer mode they've released is actually really good. Like, I haven't played a lot because I get over multiplayer quite quick and I'm busy with other games. But still, it's such just a well-polished game. Like, there's very little that was wrong with it. It reimagined lots of open world tropes in very nice ways. It made it fun to go and collect things again, like in a way. And so yeah, it was just overall just such a great story, such great graphics, such a beautiful art style. And
nice. My number 8, before I say what about it, I just want to confirm, I can confirm, is the only first-person shooter on my list, and that is Titanfall 2, probably my favorite shooter of all time. I remember this game came out at an awful time. It came out right before or after Battlefield 1. And there was another game very close. I think it might have been Star Wars
Infinite
Battlefront.
Warfare.
Oh,
No, it was Infinite
Call of
Warfare.
Duty Infinite Warfare. And it really got
It was
trapped. And so,
two EA games, which was Titanfall
yes.
2, Battlefield, and
Yeah,
Infinite
and
Warfare.
it got trapped in. So the player base wasn't huge, but it had a killer campaign. It had awesome gameplay with these giant robots. And it was also my first time in this universe because the first game was obviously an exclusive to the Xbox One. So I had such a good time with it. I still have it installed, and we still play it occasionally. I actually played another
Yeah.
match the other day, and I really enjoyed it. The from the wall running to the sliding to fighting with titans. It just has everything I love in first person shooters in one game, and made by Respawn, who are in my top two favorite developers. So yeah, it's my number 8.
My number 7 is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Just because after getting a PlayStation 4 and being able to play the first 3 in the collection, I really enjoyed the story. And then, yeah, it was a culmination of all of the Uncharted's. Like, it just was the best of what they done. It was like a perfect adventure. Also, I appreciate that for the first time ever, the final, like, fourth of the game did not pivot into some weird ass supernatural stuff. You weren't suddenly fighting demon monkeys. It was just a sword fight on a burning pirate ship. And I really appreciated that for once. I was like, when are the ghost pirates coming? And they never came. And I was so happy about that. But yeah, and then just that epilogue. Oh, it's one of the few times a game's properly made me cry because that epilogue's just, it's so happy.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful and happy and poignant for finishing Nathan Drake's story. And yeah, it's just such a perfect closer that I won't soon forget that game.
Nice. My number 7 is Concrete Genie, the only indie game on this list, and a game that grabbed my attention from the first time it was revealed, but it's nothing. It was not a game that had me constantly looking at it. And when it launched, I never thought about getting it straight away. And then throughout COVID, I went through a patch of running out of games to play, and the game was on special. So I was like, I'm interested. I'm going to pick it up. And I finished in 2 days, and I absolutely loved it. Platinumed it on the second day. It's not a long or hard platinum, but I had such a good time. It was cute. It was fun. And it was also really emotional. And the game doesn't do much. It doesn't say much, but everything that happens, the story's told through what you see. It's not told through audio, really, I would say. And it really touched me, and I really just had such a fun and intimate experience with the game, and really, really enjoyed it. My favorite indie game probably I've played. When I say indie, I just mean smaller developer.
Yeah. So my number 6 is What Remains of Edith Finch, a small indie game that's a walking simulator, but it's got such, I don't want to speak too much about it because if you've never played it, it's got such a great story where you're basically walking through this house, the Finch house. You're returning after a long time, and you kind of find out the tragic history of this family and how everyone in that family is almost cursed to die and die young. And you just kind of go through this whole thing of just Edith walking through the house and remembering her brothers, her sisters, well, not die young, but die, and then die in weird ways. Like just her grandfather, her grandmother, father, everything. And this house is amazing. It is one of the most beautiful, small levels that I've ever been in because it's so intricately designed. And it's just this ultimate house. You're like, oh, I wish I could live there. So it's just so sad. It was such a moving experience. It was only 2 to 3 hours. So it was really cool.
Nice. My number, that was your number 6, correct?
Yeah.
Cool. My number 6 is a game that probably will not be on James's list. He hates this game. It's called The Witcher 3, made by a little indie developer called CD Projekt Red. And it was a game that was so overwhelming for me at the time. But in hindsight, I really enjoyed it. I wish I got to play the DLC when I had initially played the game. I feel like it would have probably bumped this game even further up my list. But what I experienced with this game, I had way too much fun. And I can still clearly remember the night I got this game. I got it on disc, picked it up from BT Games, came home, couldn't play it immediately because I had banned or something, got home to play it, and then had load shedding. And I think James had an inverter at the time, so I messaged him and he was busy playing, and I was waiting for my power to come on. Came on at 10. I only got an hour or two to play before bed, and I was like, crap. Anyway, had such a good time with the game. I really enjoyed it, and I really do hope that CD Projekt Red aren't finished with that Witcher universe.
They've said they aren't, thankfully.
Cast
Okay,
Henry
number
Cavill.
5. Number 5 is Resident Evil 2 Remake. So I've never been big for horror games, but then you got Resident Evil 2 and you told me to give it a try. And obviously I'd seen all the news coverage, people were giving that Game of the Year in 2019. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went on sale, I bought it. And yeah, it's just, that engine is so good. That game was beautiful. Like I see why people loved the Resident Evil games as horror games in the early 90s, because that entire level design of the police station, the catacombs, the sewers, everything is just so well done for the Metroidvania style, where you keep having to come back with new items to unlock new things to keep progressing. And it's like this constant back and forth. And then the introduction of Mr. X, or the Tyrant, chasing you around. It was such a good game. And the enemies in that are so iconic. The Lickers, the normal zombies, Mr. X. Oh, and that giant sewer alligator. It was such a good game, and I really enjoyed it. And both campaigns, although they don't make sense because they use the same characters and have them be in different places at supposedly the same time for the two main characters, whatever, but it was still such a good time.
Nice. Did you have a preference, quick question, of which campaign you like more? Do you prefer Leon or Claire?
For now, I'd have to say Leon, just because he was the one I played first, so he was who I spent the most time with. Claire's was just, it's obviously in the exact same locations, but some doors, like you remember some doors that you couldn't get open at all with Leon, you get open with Claire.
Yes.
So it's just like, I might enjoy hers more if I'd been playing her from the start, because then I'd also been with her for longer.
Yeah.
So I think it might just be a bias towards Leon because I played him. I've only played him as my first, and then Claire second. I haven't done the other way.
Okay, yeah. I was curious. I only played a tiny bit of Claire second, so I only really played as Leon, so I can't really answer to that.
You're missing the whole proper ending of that game.
No. I just haven't gotten there.
You have to finish it. Dude.
I'm replaying Spider-Man again. I don't have time. All right, my number 5 is Ghost of Tsushima, a game you already talked about, and I agree with everything you said. Beautiful, polished, tight. It really did reinvent all the tropes of a third-person open-world game, and Sucker Punch knocked it out of the park. Really enjoyed it, and the multiplayer is just the cherry on top of the cake. It is fun, and that game works so well with multiplayer, and I'm just so glad it's there. And I hope that they build on it. I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't fizzle out. And I'm definitely keen to jump in with you whenever you feeling up to some multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, 10 out of 10 really makes you feel like a samurai.
Wow.
My next game, my number 4 is a 10 out of 10 because it really makes you feel like Spider-Man. So Spider-Man PS4.
Oh, I never would have guessed.
So for anyone who doesn't get it, there's constant jokes that video game reviewers will always say for a character that it makes you feel like them, and it's a constant joke for reviews about games.
I think the Spider-Man review is littered with it.
Yeah, so is every Batman review. It's just, that trope comes back all the time. But it's just, yeah, it's so polished. Like, there's nothing you can say about that game that isn't fun. Like, the combat, is it an Arkham-esque combat system? Yeah, but it's still fun. Web swinging, it's one of the few games where I don't want to fast travel because it's too fun not to. It's a game whose story was great. It's probably one of the best superhero stories ever in a video game. And from what I've heard from people that reviewed it that are like into comics, people have said it's one of the better Spider-Man stories that have happened in recent years, which is pretty damn impressive considering how many different comic lines are always running. Also, it looked amazing. It's debatable whether it's going to look as great when we've got new Peter Parker face to get used to.
We'll probably get used to it.
We will, but it's going to take some time. But yeah, it's just, that game was just so much fun. And all of its collectibles as well, I have to give it to it. The collectibles, actually, I wanted to collect because they were Spider-Man's backpacks with just like little nods to like the comics or shows or stuff like that. And it was just great having, like, they nailed everything about that and made everything feed into Spider-Man and into that world, which is just great.
Now, you did probably go over a minute. I didn't time you because I
Yeah,
don't mind you talking about Spider-Man. I mean, you can have 10 minutes if you like. But
of course.
anyway,
I thought I'd be able to get away with it this time.
my number 4 is The Last of Us Part 2.
Tug my collar.
And like we said in the beginning of this episode, this is a game that is divisive. I mean, there are going to be people who are going to be on the total low end of the spectrum, and then people like you who enjoyed it and respect the game, but it's not that 10 out of 10. But to me, this game was a 10 out of 10. And like I keep going back to that story, I don't know if I'm just more emotional at 4 a.m. in the morning, but that game hit hard when I started it at 4 a.m. And within the first 2 hours, I was tearing up, and not for the reasons you might think, for the reasons of Ellie picking up a guitar and playing a song. It's just the world building, the environmental storytelling, and the characters and the surprises along the way just blew me away. And it was a game that I didn't know I wanted. Personally, I didn't know I wanted it, didn't know I needed it. I don't think I needed it, but I'm so glad it exists for me. So yeah, I thought it was magnificent.
Number 3 for me is God of War 2018. So, like, yeah, I never played the others, but I knew who Kratos was as a character, and just the fact that they reinvented him so well, was just, it was amazing. That story of like an ex, like almost abusive aggro man who is now a big hairy dad trying to look after his son and fulfill his dead wife's wishes. And like just the somber tone of that game, the hopefulness of like kind of Atreus, the interaction with the Norse gods and kind of the interplay, the Leviathan axe, the Blades of Chaos, that combat system was amazing. The story was great. The world was so beautiful, and everything was like, when you first see Jormungandr, the world serpent, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that entire game was just almost perfect. The only thing that I think can like knock it down a bit is those horrid trials in Muspelheim. That like poisonous area where you have to fight through, and there's a Valkyrie in there, and you have to go there for some upgrades and stuff at some point.
I don't really remember.
Do you remember that place?
Not.
It's got the poisonous areas, and you have to go through like boulders, and you have to break things, and you have to keep getting to places so you don't die.
Sure, why don't I remember that? I'll give it a Google after the show. Slipped my mind.
It's
I'll be
yeah,
replaying it
it's
this
the
year.
one. It's the one thing that I'm like, meh, that was iffy. But everything else was just, it was glorious. And then there was always Kratos shouting "boy," which
Yeah.
is never going to get old.
My number 3 was also God of War. A game I knew who Kratos was, didn't expect to
Matchy for once.
exactly. I remember the E3 demos were really cool, but I mean, I was like, it's God of War. I mean, are these games good? I didn't know they scored so well. And then the IGN review came out, and I saw it was a 10 out of 10, and I messaged you, and I was like, James, it got a 10 out of 10. Should we get it? And you're like, yeah. So I was like, okay. So I got it and I played, and I was like, what? This is amazing. The one camera shot was so cool. I wish more games did that.
Yes.
I
forgot to. That was on my mind as well.
Yeah, the Leviathan axe was so fun. Some other story beats along the way are also really cool. And yeah, I really loved the game. I think it was a really amazing story. It has, like I think Greg Miller says, the best superhero fight in a non-superhero video game, being that opening fight with the stranger. And I loved the whole cast of characters. It was a small cast, but every character was so iconic, especially like Brock and Sindri. Like, absolutely loved them. So
Great little dwarves.
That's my number 3. James
anyway,
Creel, what's your number 2?
Number 2 is Persona 5. For all the reasons that it's normally been told on this podcast that I love it. So stylized.
Not Persona 5
amazing
Royal.
Music. I haven't played it yet. That's going to be my treat game when I've got 130 hours to waste. So such good combat. Music is excellent. The story is so like perfectly anime. So lighthearted and like amazing, but then so dark and depressing and deep. And like it's a common anime trope and joke. But you start off the game going to high school and you end the game by killing God.
No, man, spoilers. What's happening here?
No, I'm saying that's a trope of anime. Like, that's the type of vibe. These games escalate.
I thought you were telling me that's the ending of Persona 5.
No. No, I'm saying that's how these games go, and it's so great. It follows that type of trope that the game starts off so simple, you're going to school, and then it ends on these, like, gigantic moments of, like, death to God. And you're just like, oh, that's where this was going. And It's just like, it's so random, but I love anime and I love that game so much. And I need to play Royal.
You do, you do. He's so behind. Come on, catch up.
Uh,
My number two is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Love Star Wars, love Respawn, love third person action games. So this was just everything. Oh, I love wall running. So this was just absolutely everything in one game for me.
so does Respawn.
And I sound like such a baby, but I also just had such an emotional connection to the game. I think Star Wars has been such a big thing in my life, and this was the most interactive Star Wars game I've been able to play with at least a interactive and deep story. And there was just story beats that occurred in a certain order for me personally that worked out perfectly. I thought that's how the game was scripted. Turns out it wasn't. But I'm so glad I experienced it the way I did. So yeah, amazing game. So much fun playing with that lightsaber, the mechanics, the different planets you get to explore, and the story on top of that. I really loved it.
And number one, who could guess what number one might be?
Jeez,
I mean, it's not like I've ever mentioned it before, but it's this little known game, The Witcher 3, and all its expansions. So obviously it's number one because it's one of the best games ever made. Like, if you look at any list, people put it as genre defining so often.
yeah, it was okay.
It redefined what RPGs are supposed to be. Like, we were used to things like Skyrim and others where the quests were radiant quests, which meant, hey, go here, kill this many creatures for me, come back. Witcher 3 had like a proper story to every single quest, and it contextualized everything with well-written characters that you interacted with once. And like, it just had such a well-realized living world that where Skyrim's like, look, we're in the middle of a civil war, and you're like, where? And then you go to The Witcher and you're like, we're in the middle of a war, and you go through no man's land. You see like mass graves. You see necrophages everywhere because they feed on dead bodies, and you're like, yes, they just nailed the feeling of like a world so well. And also it's just the perfect send-off to Geralt as a character. Like, that story was great as well. Nice. And every side story was great as well. And the game was great. Basically, I just love The Witcher 3.
Nice. Well, let me just check on my phone, my number one. I don't know. Yeah. Hasn't changed. It is still Marvel Spider-Man. I go on about this game every single episode. If you haven't played it, please go and play it. If you're getting a PS5 and you haven't played the first one, don't play Miles Morales. Get the special edition that comes with the remastered version. Forgive the fact that Peter Parker looks different. Play it and then go to Miles Morales. You can thank me later. And it is just a masterpiece in my eyes. And I can't explain. I'm playing the game again for my third time. I'm doing New Game Plus because I lost my very first save when I completed the game.
Oh, yeah.
Then I replayed it now on my new PS4, and now I'm doing New Game Plus on that one. So it's my third time playing the story, and just in preparation for Miles Morales, I'm way too excited. And I need to get as much of the game as I can, and I'm absolutely demolishing my R2 button. It's already sticky R2 trigger for me on my one remote. So I'm using that remote because you use R2 so much in that game. But I'm not even going to explain why it's my number one game in the PS4. I feel like I've done that enough. But all I want to say is if you haven't played it, please go play it. It is a masterpiece. It is so much fun. And like you said, it's one of the best Spider-Man stories out there. It's not afraid to take risks, especially for a game that is going to have sequels. They didn't hold back. So yeah, that was definitely my number one. And that wraps up our top 10.
The setup for the sequel is also great.
Exactly. And I wouldn't even know, I don't know if you call Miles Morales the sequel. I'd say that's kind of like a sequel-ish. It's like a 1.5.
It's a spin-off continuing a side character's story and putting them as the main character.
Yeah.
I think.
But very excited.
Because like the bait for the sequel is, more Osborn related.
Yes.
Than the energy company and the Tinkerer for Miles Morales.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our top 10s of the PlayStation 4 generation. If you have a PlayStation 4 and you want to write in with your top 10 games, please feel free to do so to the email address talknerdywithme21@gmail.com, and I'll read that live on the show next week. And if you have a Xbox, or if you're a PC player even, I'll forgive you. You can also run with your top 10 games of the generation from PC, I guess, the last 7 years. And James, I guess we'll be doing...
2013 till now.
Yes, and I guess in 2025, you and I will be doing the same for the PS5 games, our top 10 PS5 games. So that'll be very interesting to see. But James, thank you so much for joining and participating in the show. Thank you for dressing for the occasion, looking the part. And yeah, that wraps up episode 11 of the Talk Nerdy
With Me
podcast.
Can I say one thing before I leave?
You can.
Trying to make that list made me feel like you were asking me to choose my favorite children or kill my children.
Tough. It was tough.
It was really annoying and hard to have to choose which games to put on there and which ones to kill.
Next week we can just do 11 to 20 and then increment by 10 each week, just so we're happy. Nice. All right, that wraps up episode 11 of the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and drop a like on the video, and stay tuned for more next week. Cheers, guys.
Bye.